नमस्कार, मैं अंकित सिंह व्यास आप सभी दर्शकों का आज के मंथन टॉक के इस इंटरेक्टिव सेशन में स्वागत करता हूँ। मंथन जो कि नागपुर के युवाओं द्वारा संचालित एक मंच है, जिसमें हम युवा लोग हर माह राष्ट्र और राष्ट्रहित से संबंधित विषयों पर व्याख्यान का आयोजन करते हैं। आज के इस इंटरेक्टिव सेशन में हमें जो वक्ता प्राप्त हुए हैं, उनका मैं संक्षेप में परिचय करना चाहूँगा। माननीय कर्नल अभय पटवर्धन, जो कि भारतीय सेना के माजी अफसर रह चुके हैं और 36 साल भारतीय सेना में इन्होंने स्पेशल फोर्सेस विंग में भी अपनी सेवा दी है। 36 साल के कार्यकाल के इसमें कर्नल अभय पटवर्धन सर ने कई बड़े दायित्व को निभाया। पंजाब, कश्मीर, नागालैंड, मिजोरम में जितनी भी इंसर्जेंसी मूवमेंट्स और विद्रोही आंदोलन, आतंकवादी गतिविधियों को इन्होंने नियंत्रण में लाया। 1984 के ऑपरेशन ब्लू स्टार और मुक्ति वाहिनी में भी इनका बड़ा योगदान रहा। भारत सरकार द्वारा श्रीलंका में भेजे गए इंडियन पीस कीपिंग फोर्स में इन्हें मेंबर भी नियुक्त किया गया। इन ईयर 1992, his unit also got unit citation for countering Chinese incursion, and that was the first citation got to unit of Indian Army. Now I would like to invite Colonel Abhay Patwardhan sir and would like to hand over today's interactive session to him. Thank you.
Galwan incident has happened exactly 3 years after Doklam. Now, we must remember two things. One is, during Doklam incident, China has reorganized their army and they have created Western Command, which was meant for defense of Tibet. And Zhao, General Zhao was the overall in charge of that. Since long, China had the policy of salami slicing. Salami slicing is you keep on moving forward into enemy territory, step by step. Don't jump for a long time, longer distance. Say about 1,000 yards at one time. Go there, anchor yourself, build up infrastructure, build up roads. Next time you move ahead. These are known as salami tactics. जैसे सलामी का जो लोभ होता है, लोभ को हम बारीक बारीक धीरे धीरे काटते हैं, उसी तरह से बारीक बारीक इसमें अपने जाना चाहिए। तो डोकलाम में जब चाइनीज को कोई एडवांटेज दिए बगैर we had managed the simultaneous pullback of Chinese and Indian army. So Zhao was very much hurt because the Chinese expansionist attitude was hurt because of that incident. Till the time Indian army pulled back, Chinese army never used to pull back. So they wanted to repeat it after some time. And why only May or April-May 2020 is because on 6th of August 2019 we enacted the amendment to Article 370 and 35A. That angered Chinese because we declared Ladakh as Union Territory, which they say that is a disputed area. So they wanted to ingress into Indian side. They could have ingressed in Sikkim, they could have ingressed in Arunachal, they could have ingressed in Ladakh, in older places like EVN or on Tumar side or Despang side. Why did they choose Pongyang Lake and Galwan? Because this was the area which has been relatively calm since 1962. So they knew that Indian army won't be much prepared over there. And actually it was happening. In 1962, we fought the battle on finger 8 of Pyongyang Lake. We used the road of track of Galwan to go to Pyongyang Lake. And with our infrastructure development, we had built a road from Shylock to Karakoram track or to DBN. So that road has tilted the balance into Indian side, and it gave us access to Karakoram track and Karakoram pass as such, which was very vital for China from point of view of their border road initiative as well as China-Pakistan economic corridor, which was passing through that pass, Karakoram pass. Now that pass is under observation from Siachen, but it was not possible for India to attack it unless a road was built up to Daulat Beg Oldi, DBA. Now, once we built up that road, China got worried about it. So they wanted us to teach a lesson. This is not what I am saying, this is what China Global Times had given in their editorial. So Zhao, he ingressed into Galwan, he ingressed into Pyongyang, and they occupied the ridge lines. Like I was telling you, in 62 we got up to finger 8, but we retreated up to finger 4. And we stayed back over there, Chinese stayed back on finger 8. So area between finger 4 to finger 8, about 6-7 kilometers area, was a no man's land. And they came and sat over there. When the talk started and Zhao was replaced by Lee, General Lee, who was his deputy, and the talk started, that was the time when they agreed a systematic pullback. And they said that from Galwan we'll pull back and from Pyongyang we'll pull back. So the CEO of 3rd Bihar, 16th Bihar, he along with his CEO's party, which consists of CEO, his intelligence officer, his intelligence havaldar, and few of his security guards. They went up to that finger 4, and they insisted that Chinese should move back. Chinese agreed, but they said they had erected a tent over there, guy tent. They said we will not take back that tent. CEO, being what he was, Colonel Babu, a very dashing and very offensive officer with offensive spirit, he burned that tent. That was the time when Chinese troops attacked with baton, wrapped with concertina wire, with nails and the spears. Now, how did people came over there? This happened because Chinese conducted an exercise north of Aksai Chin, where number of troops were brought, and they practiced attack across mountains by airlifting and attacking. So they had brought their special troops over there, those who are known as Chinese guards. These guards are akin to our CRPF or BSF commando teams, who are used for quelling the riots. So these were the people who were deployed over there. Now this party of about 20 people, when they went over there, Colonel Babu and his party, he had an artillery officer with him, he had an engineer officer with him, and he had 16 Bihar troops with him. He went over there, he insisted that they go back. This happened around 7 o'clock in the evening. And by about 7:30, 8 o'clock, when they burned the tent, these special guard troops, Chinese special guard troops, they came into action and they attacked these people with their sharpened weapons or improvised weapons. Now, doubts were raised after this incident in media that why didn't we carry the weapons? So we carried the weapons. Gentlemen, we must understand. As per the treaty of 2003, no firing will be done within 1 kilometer of LAC. This was a treaty we both of us signed, Congress government and Communist Party of China. And we abide by that treaty. We sling our rifles with their barrel down, in down position, and go over there. Our group naturally did not carry any weapon with them except for rifles which were having their nose pointed down. And these people came with these improvised weapons and attacked them. Couple of people fell down out of these 20. These 20 people also fought back. They also injured a couple of people over there, Chinese troops over there. But these special Chinese troops, special guard troops, were from Hun dynasty. That is area towards Mongolia. They are tall people, hefty people, unlike Chinese who are short structured. So they overpowered Indian troops and beat them black and blue. Indian troops came back. Then Colonel Babu was injured fatally. He succumbed to his injuries. Now, an infantry battalion in Indian Army has got a very typical mentality. They fight for three things: Naam, Namak or Nishan. Naam is the unit's name. Namak is the loyalty towards nation, towards its field and towards its unit. And CO of a unit is considered as the father figure of the unit. Indian troops can accept anything, any beating to anybody except for the CO. CO को हाथ लगाना इसका मतलब एक कुटुंब के मुखिया को हाथ लगाना होता है कि no family will ever accept their head being insulted or assaulted by any other side. This is exact mentality of Indian Army troops also. So when these people came back, some were left over there, some were taken prisoner over there. When they came back and they heard that their intelligence officer and CO were killed by the Chinese, they all got worked up. The Rajput battalion, the Punjab battalion, the field regiment, the Indian company, they all got together under 2IC of 16th Bihar and 3rd Field Regiment. Both these 2ICs led this attack. There were about 250 people who went over there. They went fully armed. Now, till that time, the psychology of Chinese was that Indian troops, they have the courage of fighting when attacked, but they don't have courage of attacking. So वो काफिल बैठे हुए थे, उनको कभी नहीं लगा कि इंडियन ट्रूप्स आके उनके ऊपर में अटैक करेंगे। लेकिन जो इंडियन ट्रूप्स थे, अब आप एक चीज ध्यान में रखिए कि शहीद कौन हुए बिहार रेजिमेंट के लोग, शहीद कौन हुए सीओ बिहार और बिहार रेजिमेंट का ऑफिसर। और खून किसका खोला? खून बिहारियों का खोला, खून पंजाबियों का खोला, खून राजपूतों का खोला, खून इंडियन रेजिमेंट का खोला, खून फील्ड रेजिमेंट का खोला। अब इंजीनियर रेजिमेंट और फील्ड रेजिमेंट के सदर्न ट्रूप्स थे। राजपूत वेर फ्रॉम राजस्थान, Punjabis were from Punjab, and Biharis were from Bihar. All 4, 5, 6 states of India so far off are united when they come to army, and are united to fight for their life, and are made to take life when their father is insulted or father is killed. This is what exactly happened in Galwan. It was a camaraderie between Indian troops of different states that one of us has been killed, who was a father figure. 20 of us who were our brothers, who were fighting with us, who were braving all the inhospitable terrain and weather over here with us, have been killed by Chinese, and we must take revenge. So these people who were full of revenge climb up the slope of Finger Fort. Chinese never expected them, and then they started from the lowermost portion of the ridge and went right up to the top, hitting everybody who came into their way. There were about 250, 300 Chinese soldiers over there. There were about 250 our soldiers who went over there. 3 Ghatak platoons, 90 people of infantry battalions, few other people, troops of Indian regiment, troops of artillery regiment, all of them, signal regiment, all of them met with them, and they beat them black and blue. We counted 43 dead bodies over there. But a senior Chinese officer who was retired has given a statement in Global Times saying that there are 100 Chinese soldiers who were killed in that battle. Now, China did not allow them to have a proper burial. They did not allow them to have a Thanksgiving, और जिसको हम शोक प्रदर्शन बोलते हैं, ऐसी कुछ सभा देने के लिए चाइनीज अथॉरिटीज ने मना कर दिया. Every soldier whose body was handed over to their relatives after about 20 days or so were buried or cremated at a lone figure, only with the presence of their near and dear from the family. Imagine China getting the news of what funeral we gave to Babu, what Tamil Nadu government or Telangana government had done for his wife, appointing her immediately as a deputy collector, what funeral we gave to other soldiers from Bihar, from South India, from Punjab, from Rajasthan, and what was the state of their soldiers. You imagine what the mental agony those people would have undergone when they heard this news, and this is why Chinese have stopped broadcasting of Indian news on their channel. But somehow from the foreign channels also the news went to them. गलवान का इंसिडेंट जो था वो एक अजीब किस्म का था. अजीब इसलिए कि पहली बार हमने चाइनीज के ऊपर में अटैक किया. लास्ट अटैक जो हमारा हुआ था वो 1967 में नाथुला में हुआ था, जब हमने चाइनीज के 200 सोल्जर्स मारे थे. लेकिन हमारे भी उसमें तकरीबन 150 के ऊपर सोल्जर्स शहीद हो गए थे. इस बार हमारे 20 लोगों ने के बदले में हमने उनके 100 मारे हैं, और साथ में जैसे हमारा कमांडिंग ऑफिसर शहीद हुआ वैसे उनका कमांडिंग ऑफिसर भी मारा गया. दिस वॉज अ मेजर सेटबैक फॉर चाइना. अर्लियर चाइनीज यूज्ड टू विथड्रॉ आफ्टर सम टाइम. डोकलाम दे स्टेड फॉर 73 days, लेकिन बाद में वो विड्रॉ कर गए. यहाँ से वो विड्रॉ नहीं कर रहे. क्यों? क्योंकि ये उनके लिए इज्जत का सवाल बना हुआ है. This is a matter of prestige where Indian troops have killed their people in a hand-to-hand combat without firing a single shot. 100 Chinese have been killed. It's a highly moral boosting factor for Indian Army. And then whatever we have done in Ladakh, the reinforcement of infantry, the reinforcement of air force, the reinforcement of artillery, bringing up the tanks over there, bringing up the missiles over there, arrival of Rafales over there, without preparation for 6 months, which is required for a pilot to get operationally trained. Within 7 days of training, the Rafales have gone to Ladakh. They are night flying over there. Chinooks are night flying over there. Apaches are night flying over there. We are fully prepared. This is a milestone, not only between Indian and Chinese relations, but China's prestige into the littoral states of South China Sea. What bloody knows? Vietnam had given to Chinese in Vietnam War. We have given them in Galwan. And that is one thing we must remember. And that is why we say that all these 20 people, their valor should be recognized during Independence Day and during Republic Day. India was partitioned in 1947. अब सोचना यह है कि ये पार्टीशन ठीक था या नहीं था। कुछ लोग कहते हैं ये ठीक था क्योंकि धर्म के आधार पर हुआ था। It was based on religion. Muslims wanted Pakistan, Hindus wanted India or Hindustan. What happened was it started somewhere around 1920s when Muslim League floated the idea of independent Pakistan, independent land for the Muslims, known as Pakistan. Pak is Pavitra. So they wanted that particular land over there. But things so happened, ऐसे कुछ घटनाक्रम हुए कि जब तक इंडियन आर्मी का या ब्रिटिश इंडियन आर्मी का विभाजन नहीं हुआ या विभाजन के ऊपर दोनों गुटों की सहमति नहीं हुई, तब तक पार्टीशन का कोई मतलब नहीं था या पार्टीशन होने वाला नहीं था। अब ये अच्छा हुआ या बुरा हुआ, तो अच्छा इसलिए हुआ है कि दोनों गुट अलग अलग हो गए, थोड़ा सुकून और शांति मिली। बुरा इसलिए हुआ कि जो पार्टीशन के बाद havoc which was created by the fundamentalists in Pakistan was unprecedented. There were lakhs of people who were killed. Number of trains full of corpses were sent to India. And possibly we could not prevent it for two reasons. One was that the person who was commanding Pakistani army that time was Mercy, who was responsible for this. Secondly, on his directions, Gilgit and Baltistan were given to Pakistan. They surrendered to Pakistan. So this we must keep in mind. Lord Attlee, when he was the Prime Minister, he floated in English Parliament that we must have presence of British Army on Indian soil to protect our interest, safeguard our interest. अगर हमने एशिया में अपनी धाक जमानी है तो हमारा सैनिकी प्रावधान हिंदुस्तान में होना जरूरी है, ये उसका नारा था। Accordingly, Lord Mountbatten, Hakim Lake, who was the commander-in-chief that time, they both advocated a single army for both the nations, and they wanted a single commander-in-chief under whom two provinces, like commands, army commands will be created. But how did it happen? This is what I am going to tell you, because story of partition everybody knows. Post of partition, everybody knows. But what role British Indian Army played and what role, how Indian Army was won, very few people know about it. Let me take your attention back to 1857. जब स्वतंत्र का पहला संग्राम हुआ था 1857 में, that was the time when Britishers had about 20,000 soldiers in India and about 360 princely states had their own army. So there was nothing known as British Indian Army prior to 1957. 1957 का स्वतंत्र संग्राम में जब हमारी हार हुई, उस समय में 1958 में ब्रिटिशर्स ने ब्रिटिश इंडियन आर्मी की स्थापना की। उन्होंने दो चीजें की उसमें। एक चीज तो ये थी कि उन्होंने प्रिंसली स्टेट के जो राजे थे, उनकी जो खुद की आर्मियां थी, उनको अपने कब्जे में ले लिया। और दूसरा ये था कि उन्होंने अपनी जो खुद की आर्मी बनाई, उसमें आधे हिंदू और आधे मुस्लिम हुआ करते थे। दिस इज दे डिड बिकॉज दे डिडंट वांट 1857 टू बी रिपीटेड, क्योंकि 1857 में हिंदू और मुस्लिमों ने अलग अलग लड़ाई लड़ी थी अंग्रेजों के साथ। इफ दे वुड हैव फॉट टुगेदर, देन प्रोबेबली Britishers would have been driven away in 1857 only. But then they got wise and they did this. So they had mixed battalions of Indian Army. Indian Navy and Air Force wasn't there at that time. Only 2 battalions were caste based, or 2 regiments were caste based. One was Gurkhas and one was Garhwalis. Rest everybody had Hindu and Muslim in equal parts. Similarly to Punjab regiment, Punjab regiment की 2 बटालियन है, उसमें प्योर मुस्लिम्स थे। तो गढ़वाल पंजाब रेजिमेंट के 2 बटालियन और गुरखा ये प्योर बटालियन थी, बाकी सब मिक्स बटालियन थी। 20 फरवरी 1947 को जब अनाउंस हुआ कि पार्टीशन होने वाला है, that was the time when the process of dividing Indian Army or British Indian Army started. Britishers never wanted Pakistan and India to have different armies. They wanted same army. That is what I told you earlier. Accordingly, they put up cabinet commission plan for single army under single CNC and 2 provinces, that is India and Pakistan, having Britishers and Indian troops. That time we had 8,400 British officers with us and about 30,000 British troops with us. So that was what they wanted. Now 11th May 46 was the day when Field Marshal Lord Auchinleck, he floated the idea of single army, which was rejected by Jinnah. But unfortunately, Baldev Singh, who was that time Defence Minister designate, he accepted that idea, but he was not given much of weightage by those people. In December 47, Lord Mountbatten again floated this idea of having a same army under joint defense against aggression pact. That is, nobody will attack anybody, and if somebody attacks either Pakistan or India, the same army will fight. This was also rejected by these people. In April 47, Lord Mountbatten, Auchinleck, Liaquat Ali Khan and Baldev Singh, these are Pakistan and India, they accepted the division of British Indian Army and they formed a defense committee. Achinlek, who was the commander-in-chief, told that time that you start planning for this. 3rd June 47 was the day when Mountbatten announced in Delhi and in London simultaneously on radio that India and Pakistan will be bifurcated. This created ruckus in India. West Bengal started having communal riots. Kerala started having communal riots. 1st June 1947, Armed Forces Reconstitution Committee was established by the Governor General. And Odisha Governor Chandulal Trivedi was called in as the secretary of that committee. This was because Chandulal Trivedi had worked in War Department of Hindustan or British India during Second World War. The work started on 5th July 1947. General Cariappa of Indian Army was given the task by Achinlek to find out what is the mood of soldiers. He carried out a survey and then he reported that 90% of Muslims, they want to migrate to Pakistan. That included officers and jawans both. And he said that but few of them, they want to stay back in India. So those who want to stay back, we should accept them. And Governor General and Commander-in-Chief accepted that idea. One thing is, during 1939 and 1945, that is Second World War, the 30,000 British troops in India and some 3 state armies, which the constitution was about 1 lakh people, it rose to 20,20,000. After Second World War, Britishers disbanded that army because they could not pay them. There was cash crunch in British India. So 9,000 units of British Indian Army were disbanded. 61 princely armies, state units, were sent back, and 11 battalions of Gurkha were sent back to Nepal. Ultimately, when India got freedom in 1947, the strength of British Army was 4,10,000. उसमें से 11,500 ऑफिसर्स थे और 3,50,000 सैनिक थे और 50,000 के करीब स्टेट सोल्जर्स थे। उसमें से 2,60,000 जो हिंदू और कुछ मुसलमान थे, ये भारत के पास आए and about 1,40,000 people, they went back to Pakistan. Now, this 2,60,000 Indian Army was deployed in Kerala, where communal riots were on, in West Bengal, where communal riots were on, to guard borders of East Pakistan and to manage the refugees coming from Punjab and Kashmir. So, actually, then Indian government did not have more than about 30,000 people to fight the war actually. This partition took place under Joint Defence Committee, which was working under Partition Council. Partition Council was the main body which was overseeing the partition of India into Pakistan, India and East Pakistan. The chairman of this body was Governor General. The secretary was the Supreme Commander, that is CNC Achinlek, and defense ministers and chiefs of Pakistan and India were the members. So when partition took place, the strength of Indian Army, that is 4,10,000 people, were divided. How they were divided? Pakistan got 5 Punjab regiments, 5 battalions of Punjab regiments. They got full Baluch regiment. They got full frontier force. They got full frontier rifles. That is, they got 33 battalions total, and India got remaining 88 battalions. In armored corps, British Indian Army had 18 regiments. Out of that, 6 were given to Pakistan, 12 were kept in India. Artillery, they had 27 units. 8.5 units were given to Pakistan and 18.5 units were given to India. Engineer companies, 95, 34 were given to Pakistan, 61 were given to India. Navy had 62 warships. They were divided in a ratio of 2:1, that is 2 to India and 1 to Pakistan. So Pakistan got 20 ships and India got 42 ships. For the simple reason that we had a very large coastline, whereas Pakistan had very small coastline. So it was a very correct division. Air Force, they total had 8 fighter squadron and 2 transport squadron. So one transport squadron was given to Pakistan, 1 to India, and 7 fighter squadrons were given to India and 1 to Pakistan. This is how Indian Army came into being. Now, 2 things we must remember. One thing is, though partition took place on basis of religion, there were a couple of princely states who wanted to join Indian Army. Punjab was one of them, Garhwalis were second, Kumaonis were third, Marathas were fourth. Bengalis and South Indians, they had their representation in engineer regiment. Bihar wanted to come in, so they were also brought in. Northeast wanted to come in, so they were also brought in. So after partition, Indian Army adopted class-wise recruitment in India, which is still continuing except for some aberration during 1984. That time, for some time, class recruitment was stopped. Now during partition, Indian Army had done an excellent job. They quelled the riots in West Bengal. They controlled the Mopla rebellion in Kerala. They managed borders of East Pakistan. They managed borders of West Pakistan. Also, they controlled the influx of the refugees. And they managed that there will be no massacre of Muslims in India, basically in Pakistan, in Punjab and in Kashmir. So these were the 2 states which bore the maximum brunt of partition. We in South India, Eastern India or Central India did not have that much of problems, but Punjab, then some part of Rajasthan, some part of Gujarat south. So this is how the defense of India was generated. And now the army, which was about 2,20,000 that time, or 2,40,000 that time, Air Force, which had only 8 squadrons that time, has now gone to 42. 32 are operational, 10 are functional. Navy, which had only 40 ships, has gone to 150 ships now. And Air Force, I told you earlier. Army, has risen to 12.5 lakh in strength. And we are one of the best Indian armies in the world. We rank third as far as strength is concerned. So partition was a boon for defense. That's why I brought out this in front of you, being a defense officer. I did not dwell much on political angle of this. I hope you liked it.
Namaskar, welcome again on the Manthan platform, sir. You have given us very nice insights, inputs on Galwan Valley and the Indian Armed Forces and the partition. But what we would like to also hear about is about the ex-servicemen. So basically, after retirement or voluntary or short service commission, or after completing the entire commission, we find that the exemplary character is still present in the soldiers. So, what are the few examples of how soldiers deal with in the day-to-day life after they have after they come to the civilian life, or after they gel up in the civilian lives?
It's a very good question, madam, what you have asked. Now, apart from very good, it's a burning question for us, because Government of India has banned the lateral transfer of the soldiers, and soldiers retire at the age of between 35 and 40. That is a normal soldier. If he becomes a ACO and rise to the rank of Soldier Major, then he may go up to 43 or so, 44 or so. But 44 is the limit for a soldier to go back home, which is the prime time for a civilian person to work into civilian life. So that lateral transfer has been banned for us. Our government has not agreed to it. So we had to find jobs into civil. Now two things are there. The atmosphere for soldiers is different. The atmosphere for officers is different. Basically because officers have got technical degrees with them, they got educational qualifications with them, which the old age soldier didn't have. Because till 75, 76, we had illiterate people coming into army. After 76, it started 8 pass, and somewhere in 90s we started 10 pass. Now, after 2000, it is 12 pass. So 12 pass soldier in any stream, whether arts, science, commerce, whatever it is not fit enough to be re-employed, except for security job. That too, again, the difference is there between Army, Navy and Air Force. Because in Air Force, the airman, when he is recruited after 12 or intermediate, he gets the technical training, which can be utilized in Army, in civil. I'll give you an example. Any technician in Indian Air Force who repairs aircraft over there can be absorbed by the MROs in India. Okay. Any signalman who has been operating over there, or any wingman who has been operating in Air Force, in transport aircraft, can be absorbed by the airlines as a route officer over there. Any pilot has been who has been serving in Indian Air Force can be employed by civilian airlines or private airlines or private enterprises. A recent example is Deepak Sathe, who resigned from Air Force and joined Air India. So he is one of the examples. Second example I can give you is Deshpande, who served for 6 years in infantry. One example, he was served in infantry, came out, had his own training in technical subjects, and has formed a company in America now. And he is employing almost 150 people in America and in India. So people are there. Then Mrs. Amte is there, who has been employed by Go Air as a pilot over there. So for officers, it's not much of a problem, because up to the position of deputy manager or deputy HR or deputy security officer or security officer can be employed. The problem is for jawans. For jawans, especially from army, who are only 12th pass, has become a problem. Now a person who can drive tank has no employment in civil. A person who is repairing, say, signal equipment has no employment in civil. So we have problems for that. Government is planning to have the skill training for us also, and under army headquarters we have started our own skill training for the retiring soldiers to get absorbed into civil life.
So what are the factors that are motivating the youth to join the armed forces? And also what are the ways in which they can join the various armed forces, that is the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy?
See, there are a couple of schemes where people can come to Indian Army, Navy and Air Force. As far as Jawans is concerned, there is a recruitment drive. Every 2 months there is a recruitment drive. People are recruited throughout India. They are first tested physically, then they are tested medically, then they have to give a written exam, and then there is a merit list, and then they come to army. Similarly in Air Force, the air headquarters takes out the vacancies, people have to appear. They have got more tests because they are the technical people, and they also have the same system of coming in. Similarly in Navy also. Navy has got recruitment from two sides. One is from Navy, that is the technical recruitment. One is the sailors recruitment, which is through Army recruiting office. As far as officers are concerned, Army, Navy and Air Force, all three recruit their technical officers through their technical branches. Science graduates, engineering graduates are recruited. They have campus interviews. They have interviews by applying. The vacancies or the information comes in Rozgar Samachar or Employment News or in some national newspapers like Indian Express, Times of India or so. Now Air Force has got technical entry, AFCAT entry and NDA entry and CDS entry. Army has got CDS entry, Short Service Commission entry, technical entry. Navy has got CDS entry, Naval Academy entry through NDA and Naval Academy entry directly. So these are the entries what people are allowed to come into Army, Navy, Air Force as soldiers, sailors, airmen or as officers. Now I see lot of enthusiasm into the school children to go for NDA exam, National Defence Academy exam. Every year we conduct exam twice a year, that is in January and in June, and we have almost 2 lakh people every day appearing for the interview, appearing for the exam. But people who pass, the pass percentage is very less. Though Army, Navy, Air Force has got a cumulative shortfall of almost 14,000 officers. We haven't laid down our standards. Okay, our standards are same as it was earlier. Because if we take tainted personnel or unwanted personnel or personnel with ambiguous qualities, then the life of the people are involved. If a computer operator is corrupt, only his computer will go back or his company will suffer financially. But if a substandard officer or a JCO or a OR comes into Indian Army, if he is a OR, then a couple of his colleagues are killed. If he is a JCO, then about 20-30 people are killed. If he is an officer, then about 120 people are killed. And if they don't have the moral aptitude or attitude, if he becomes a CO, 1,200 lives are depending on him. If he is a pilot, then aircraft worth 1,000 crores of rupees is there. Because a rifle today costs 8,000 crore rupees. Okay. So we must keep this in mind. That is why we are still accepting people, we are still accepting shortfall into our academics, into our institutions. We are very strict on moral turpitude, and a soldier comes or an officer comes to Indian Army or Indian Navy or Indian Air Force, he and his parents, they think on these lines. So the motivation is the inner motivation of an individual. I cannot motivate him by giving him more pay. Yes, he has to be commensurate with the civilian person. Otherwise he won't come. क्योंकि आखिर में आदमी को अपनी हुक्म का पालन करना पड़ता है, उसके लिए पैसा चाहिए होता है. अगर वो सिविलियन कितना नहीं मिला तो उसको आगे फायदा नहीं है फिर. And I won't blame him. And as such, everybody in India serves the nation at whatever position he is. It does not mean that only army people or defense people serve or police people serve. No, everybody serves. But then they got a way of working. Our way of working is tough, so people are not that much motivated coming to us. What I like to tell people is, come to defense forces. There you get enough of opportunities to progress your career. We give you technical training in our engineering colleges, medical colleges. We give you study leave at the end of your service to qualify for civil service. We provide you enough sports facilities where civilians don't have. We give you enough of opportunities to visit those places in India or abroad where as a civilian you will have to pay thousands and thousands of rupees. You go for scuba diving. Every scuba diving costs you about 7,000 to 8,000 rupees. You go for civilian flying. Every flying hour costs you about 30,000 to 40,000 rupees, where you get everything free in defense services. So that is the advantage. Unfortunately, the youth today does not see the advantages. He only sees, or his family members only see the dark side of defense and not the bright side of defense.
Sir, also when the youth, there are many youth who want to join the armed forces, but they sort of get conflicts out during the SSB, like during the last round. So they always question this one thing, that what is that one thing that the armed forces wants to see in us? Why are we not selected even when we give our 100% during the SSB rounds?
Yeah. See, that is the wrong attitude of an individual, or I'll say it's the wrong feedback from the officers who have come to army and are running classes or coaching classes over here. We don't see one quality. There are 32 qualities we see. There are 23 tests in SSB what we clear. I want the person to clear. Each test he has to clear individually. Okay. That is, every test he has to pass and he has to get aggregate. 50% is passing and 50% is aggregate in SSB. Now 23 tests over a period of 5 days to keep up that tempo becomes a problem. Okay. You can keep up a tempo in a campus interview where your interview is for 20 minutes. Okay. You can keep up your tempo. You can show your aptitude. You cannot show it for 5 days. 5 days, somewhere you will go back. We put you under pressure. Tremendous pressure. Pressure of time, pressure of work, pressure of resources. Okay. We will not put for a student. So, these are the places where people lag behind. They want to show what they are not. Okay. I mean, I'll blame it on the spurious floating classes which have come up in India. I mean, anybody who comes up after retirement, he will start floating class. Okay. So, people get distracted or misled because of that. It's not that we don't want people to come. We want people to come. Even after so much of stringent intake, we got bad rates in army. If we lower our standards, then what will happen? It will be something like Pakistani army, where army has gone into business and from to milk, to bank, they are running businesses over there. They cannot fight. They only can run the business. We don't want that to happen to Indian defense. That is why.
Okay then, thank you so much sir for joining us, and thank you so much for sparing your valuable time and giving
I am
me
honored
personally-
that I have been called by Manthan for this extended session. I am really grateful to you. I hope people have learned something about formation of Indian Army, what Galwan has done, what you require to adjust yourself with civilian life, and what motivates you to go to the army. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us for this amazing online session by Colonel Abhay Patwardhan sir. We thank him for sparing his valuable time, and also we wish to impart something on the importance of Indian Armed Forces on the Independence Day, which is on 15th August. So this was just a small attempt to give everyone the insight of how important role Indian Armed Forces play in our lives when we are sitting in the comforts of our house, even during the pandemic. So it is during the pandemic that every one of us is in the lockdown, and it is the soldiers who are still doing their best to safeguard the Indian territory, the country. And I would like to thank everyone for joining us to this online session. I am hoping that everyone is staying inside their homes, taking all the precautionary measures needed during this pandemic. And we will join you soon for another Manthan talk and another Manthan session. Thank you everyone. Thank you for spreading so much of love and sharing our videos every day. Also, I would request all of you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow us on various social networking sites, which is Instagram, Facebook, and also Twitter. And keep yourself updated about the upcoming sessions on Manthan. Thank you so much.